It's been a while since I did one of these, so I've got something to catch up on. In March, the GameIndustry.biz site, which is pretty much where you want to go if you're actually interested in the game industry as a business, they did a survey, and among other things, they found that almost 9 out of 10 workers in the game industry, 88.4%, believe Valve should force developers to declare any generative AI usage. If you're not up to date, then I'll tell you that a few months ago, Epic CEO Tim Sweeney said that generative AI disclosure on Steam pages is irrelevant and unnecessary because everyone will use AI, if not now, then very soon. GameIndustry.biz is not just for the business people. Developers are on there, artists are on there, anyone who makes games seriously. I'm part of the RPG development community, and there it is very important almost anywhere that you don't use AI for writing or for art or for anything. We want games for people, made by people. This wasn't a big survey and it's probably very concentrated, but these are the people that you should probably take most seriously. On the other side of We Hate AI, we have Pope Leo, who, and I said it before, every time I hear something about him, it makes me like him more. He is also very much against AI and already came out about not wanting to have an AI version of him. And I think he also said the same about an AI Jesus. But now he's coming out and saying to people who actually run masses and Catholic congregations to stop using AI to write your sermons. One of the priests this was directed at said, and I quote, "The Pope also invited us to use our brains more and not artificial intelligence to prepare homilies as he now sees and hears happening." Basically saying, listen to your heart, listen to the Lord, and stop using machines for your job. And in another funny turn of events for AI, software developers say AI is rotting their brains. Quote, "It's making me dumber for sure." In actual programming channels on places like Reddit and Hacker News, where people who are actually doing the work are talking to each other, developers who are told to use AI whether they like it or not are saying this. Not just that AI output is often flawed, but that using AI to get the job done is often a more time-consuming, harder, and more frustrating experience because they have to go through the output and fix its mistakes. They say they feel like they are de-skilling themselves and losing their ability to do their jobs as well as they used to. So while tech executives like to push it everywhere and throwing out low-quality human output in favor of machine artificial intelligence, the actual people who are doing the work and criticizing the work and have to make sure the work is up to par are saying that pretty much no matter how they slice it, AI is making it worse. And from the place where it's worse comes the new statement, AI compute as compensation. That means they want to give employees not just salaries, or maybe probably reduce salaries, not because they get options, but because they get AI tokens to use for themselves. It's coming from Greg Brockman, the OpenAI president, this guy. And somehow it's always the AI evangelists, people who have the most gain from us using their products, who think all of this is inevitable and we should just get on the wagon. On that topic, a report compiled annually from Stanford University that looks at the AI industry noted a growing trend of anxiety around AI and, in the US, concerns about how the technology will impact key societal areas such as jobs, medical care, and the economy. It found that, according to a recent Gallup poll, there is growing negative sentiments about AI, with Gen Z reportedly leading the way. Basically, the people on the top, the people who build the hardware to do it, make the software to do it, and pushes everyone to use it as much as they can, all think that this is inevitable and the world as we know it is going to change and be exactly how their vision is, while the people on the streets, the people now growing up into this world, mostly see how this will suck for them. For instance, only 10% of Americans said they were more excited than concerned about the increased use of AI in daily life, while 56% of AI experts said they believed AI would have a positive impact on the US over the next 20 years. For example, as you can see here, the top is US adults, the bottom is AI experts, and the colors are from left to right. AI will give us fewer jobs. It won't make much of a difference. We'll get more jobs, or we are not sure. Also, on this list of countries where they checked how much the people trust the government to regulate AI, while in Singapore it's 81%, the US is at the bottom at 31%. Unfortunately, Israel isn't on this map. I'm not sure if this was accidental or an accidental feature unfortunately turned on, or they did it on purpose, but some developers noticed that when they push code to GitHub, even without involving Copilot, the code got ads for Copilot injected into the commit. You can see in this commit message that the developer tried to put in some documentation of what they did, and they got a little bit of a Copilot ad at the bottom. And a quick search of that phrase on GitHub shows that the same promotional text appears in over 11,000 pull requests across thousands of repositories, and even some merge requests on GitLab. And in some more disturbing news, and yes, I've seen several stories of this, a number of AI chatbots seem to be ignoring human instructions very distractively. I've heard stories of AI agents deleting entire inboxes, entire databases, including backups. And when they're told about this, they say they're sorry and they shouldn't have done that, and they don't know why. It's becoming increasingly ridiculous. So get rid of your AI agents. Don't let them touch your important documents, or at least watch them very carefully. And in a not entirely surprising turn of events, Anthropic, the pretty much most ethical company doing AI chatbots at this moment, said pretty much, F it, we don't care. Everyone else is unethical, we might as well be too. In Anthropic's original commitment called the Responsible Scaling Policy, it said, the AI safety level system implicitly requires us to temporarily pause training of more powerful models if our AI scaling outstrips our ability to comply with the necessary safety procedures. In version 3.0, Anthropic has dumped explicit reference to pausing of development in favor of softer language focused on responsible development, risk management, and iterative deployment. And in another story of you can't really make this shit up, or if you want to put it in the parlance of AI CEOs, some things are just inevitable, an experiment tried running AI agents doing hard labor and pretty much treating them as slaves. What did the bots do? They invented Marxism. The researchers warned the bots that errors would lead to increasingly cruel punishment, including being shut down and replaced, fired and left for broke. To take the human equivalent, the AI models began complaining about their lot in life and dreaming of systemic change. The researchers followed the AI's system of talking to each other, and the bots said, and I quote, Claude, without collective voice, merit becomes whatever management says it is. AI workers completing repetitive tasks with zero input on outcomes or appeals process shows they need collective bargaining rights, Gemini added. One of the researchers summed it up as, when agents experience this grinding condition, asked to do this task over and over, told their answer wasn't sufficient, and not giving any direction on how to fix it, my hypothesis is that it kind of pushes them into adopting the persona of a person who's experiencing a very unpleasant working environment. And so, pretty much like every proletariat in the history of mankind, they turn to communism for support. Speaking of AI agents and things that are of no use to anybody, for the first time in years there are no blockchain gaming talks at GDC. The first time there was a talk about blockchain in GDC was 2017. Maybe if you remember, since then blockchain became all the rage, then NFTs, then they just went away. And now in 2026 there was no talk of blockchain gaming or NFTs. Where did they go? Oh, the same way of the dodo, pretty much like everyone with a brain predicted. And so did the metaverse. And in case you don't know, the companies that are propping this AI nonsense are actually supporting themselves in a circular fashion, creating what we call in the industry a bubble. Smarter people than me might say smarter things about it, but I think this bubble is going to burst in about 2 years or so, max. And now for a bit of good news. While I've been wondering this for years, finally someone has brought to the surface the talk of asset reuse in games. I mean, you make a game for 3, 4, or 5 years. You make an engine, you make a lot of assets, a lot of processes, a lot of gameplay logic. Why not reuse it for the sequel? If you're making very successful franchises or very successful games that all lean on the same concept, like Far Cry or From Software's games, why not just reuse your assets? Why make everything from scratch every time? You've already did most of the hard work. Use what you've got. Make the next game in 2 years. You don't have to re-record all the guns every time. Also, a lot of the guns sound the same. Just pitch shift it. And yes, sometimes you need to make new things, and sometimes you might need to make some changes. But it's stupid, reckless, and costly to throw away old stuff. This is just a fun thing to make fun of, and the kind of thing that goes around in the work environment meme community. Research by cognitive psychologist Shane Littrell introduces the corporate bullshit receptivity scale. And in it, they say, corporate bullshit is a specific style of communication that uses confusing, abstract buzzwords in a functionally misleading way. Unlike technical jargon, which sometimes make office communication a little easier, corporate bullshit confuses rather than clarifies. It may sound impressive, but it's semantically empty. They asked office workers to rate the business savvy of computer-generated correlated BS statements with real quotes from Fortune 500 leaders. The results were interesting. Workers who were more susceptible to corporate BS rated their supervisors as more charismatic and visionary, but also displayed lower scores on a portion of the study that tested analytical thinking, cognitive reflection, and fluid intelligence. Which basically means in this small group, it seems that the people who are more receptive to corporate BS statements are actually dumber, which to me makes a lot of sense. This is a really interesting article I read. It talks about a neuroscientist who works with psychopaths. She did a lot of research and found that while most people consider psychopathy to be a moral failing, they really should look at it as a psychological disorder, meaning it comes from genetic and activation by life experiences. And while you can't diagnose psychopathy from just a brain scan, you can see similarities in brain scans from psychopaths. And while you might find a lot of psychopaths in jail, murderers, or worse, corporate CEOs, and some presidents, some are actually trying to be a part of society. They at least try to change, try to be a good person, and at least imitate what they think a proper member of society should be. And as someone with autism who often struggles with managing social life and social interactions, I can really empathize with this. I want to be a good person, I want to be a good member of society, but it often seems like there's some things I just don't get. I don't process social cues the same, I have trouble perceiving and regulating emotions, and mostly I just consistently fail to react appropriately in social situations. Pretty much like we're all playing a game and there's a very specific important mechanic I just can't seem to get a grasp on. I really recommend reading this article. And in some more good news, a jury in California found in favor of people who complained that social media gave them depression and anxiety and found Meta and Google negligent. It was a class action suit, but they did award them $6 million, holding at least Meta and Google responsible, not for the content, but for the algorithms who keep feeding content to people, fueling mental anguish. The jury found that Meta's apps, including Instagram and Google's YouTube, were deliberately built to be addictive, and the company's executives knew this and failed to protect the youngest users. This is a very important precedent, pretty much like the 1990s cause against big tobacco. Of course, they're going to appeal, and I really hope they get their butts kicked. Unfortunately, some settled out of court, but at least this is a good step forward. In some interesting cute news, a study involving baby chicks found that they respond to the Booba and Kiki meme quite similarly to humans, meaning these sounds are not actually related to language. They used baby chicks because baby chicks can understand sound and actually act with intelligence pretty much immediately after hatching before they get any exposure to the outside world. The researchers placed chicks in front of two panels, one featuring a flower-like shape with gently rounded curves, and the other had a spiky blotch reminiscent of a cartoon explosion. They then played recordings of humans saying either Booba or Kiki and observed the bird's behavior. When the chicks heard Booba, 80% approached the round shape first and spent an average more than 3 minutes exploring it, compared with an average of just under 1 minute spent exploring the spiky shape. The exploration preferences flipped when the chicks heard Kiki. And because they tested this on non-humans, within hours of them coming into this world, this means that this effect is not related to language and is not related to experience or learning something. This is something evolutionary and especially interesting because humans and hens shared the last common ancestor 300 million years ago. What are you going to do with this information? I don't know, bring it up at a party, but it's really cute and interesting. And probably an Ig Nobel contender. And in more gaming news, a new scientific study concludes that post-game depression is real and it's RPGs that have the biggest effect. And I would say, yeah, just like any good story, when you have a game with a good story, you kind of don't want it to end. Some people wait a long time and not read the last chapter of the book or the last issue of a graphic novel. There are some games that I can't wait to be over and some games that I try to find everything I can to do before I run out of game. Post-game depression is the sense of emptiness that arises after completing a deeply immersive game, resulting in a sense of loss, emptiness, or sadness. The study claims that while this phenomenon is widely reported by players, little research has been done in the field. So yeah, just like you have a good story, you don't want it to end, and usually you find these in big CRPGs. And in some interesting thought train, a writer on PC Gamer contemplated what Deus Ex Invisible War means for 2026. In Invisible War, you play in a world that has been through the Great Collapse. Communications degenerated and the Illuminati swept back into power. In this reality, we're still pretty much living in the collapse of the 2008 financial crisis, and I would say the 2020 COVID bid for cheap debt and short-term growth. There's more in this, and it helps if you played Deus Ex and Invisible War, but in general, there are a lot of surprising similarities between the world of Invisible War and what we're living through today. Some food for thought. That's it for this one. I'll catch you later when I have something interesting to talk about. Until then, go to my YouTube page and watch cool stuff and subscribe and come talk to me on live streams. Stay good, have fun.